So you guys know there's this whole controversy going down with Blake Lively with the new movie, her new movie, It Ends With Us. But she's being outed right now. She's kind of being exposed for being a mean girl, essentially.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
What about my bump?
No, not bumps. The lovely lady lumps. Check it
Okay.
out.
The new movie is called It Ends With Us, and it's based on a book by Colleen Hoover, or I mean, it is the movie adaptation of the book about a girl in an abusive relationship. I think like a married couple, and the wife is being abused by the husband. Am I going to get demonetized for saying the A word? So it's about DV, essentially, right? A very serious topic. But Blake Lively's interviews throughout the whole press junket have been very unserious. Like, she will not be serious about the subject matter. There was one clip where this guy asked her, like, if there are people who watch this film who have gone through similar things in their real life, how can they talk to you about this? Or like, what would you say to them? Something like that. And she gave the most disgusting, like passive aggressive response. It was disgusting. What did she even say? She was like, oh, drop a pin, right? Or like maybe they can, what's my location? Maybe they can ask for what my location is. Maybe they can use an app to find me. Like, and then she was being super passive aggressive. Like, she tried to play it off as, oh, I'm just joking. But you can tell, like, no, you were just being a bitch.
So if someone understands the themes of this movie, comes across you in public, and they want to really talk to you, what's the best way for them to be able to talk to you about this? How would you recommend they go about it?
Like asking for like my address or my phone number or like my location share. Or I could just location share you and then we could
She was like, oh, I'm a Virgo, so you have to be more specific when you ask me questions. That was not a difficult question. Okay, you knew exactly what the person was asking, and they were not like putting her on the spot, because that's literally the subject matter of the movie. So I think it's very reasonable for the interviewer to ask you a question. Like, I think it's very reasonable to assume that the actors or whoever is involved in the project is passionate about or wants to bring more awareness to issues of DV, like marital DV, things like that. Yeah, if you contrast her behavior, especially with her co-star, who is Justin Baldini, although I don't think he's like 100% innocent, to be honest. I know that everyone is kind of like, okay, everyone is kind of trying to push back on the Me Too movement now, because I feel like during Me Too, this is what happens with any type of social movement, right? You kind of go really far into, like, you go really gung-ho into one movement. In the process, some people do get hurt. There are some bad actors who took advantage of the Me Too movement. I'm talking about women that maybe like wrongfully accused innocent men of doing things to them that they didn't actually do. But because the Me Too movement was gaining so much traction, and like the whole believe all women thing was taken very seriously by the public, then there were some casualties that arised out of that, in the form of like men that were actually innocent, that actually did not, do SA on women, but they were just like accused, or like unfortunately accused by a vindictive woman who wanted to bring them down for whatever reason. So yeah, disappointed with her, Blake. There were longtime rumors that she's a mean girl for a while now. So yeah, I feel like with the Me Too movement, after the first wave happened, then people started getting upset. Like, maybe mostly men started to get upset, and they started to push back on it. And the one watershed moment, I would say, that really kind of started to change the tides, that kind of made it safe for people that were not completely on board with Me Too to push back, was the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation, which I believe was a case of ABUSC on both sides. That's my personal belief. But I think, honestly, this is just my personal belief, I think mostly on Johnny's side, because we're talking about a guy that is 25 years older than her at the time, who has been in the industry longer than her. He's been a veteran in the industry. He has connections. He has the status. Please, you're not going to convince me that Johnny Depp is some like abused, battered house husband by some 20-something-year-old ingenue that just came into the industry. Like, I don't care. So, yeah. But I feel like with that case, a lot of men felt vindicted? No, that's not the word. What's the word? Oh my god, I'm blanking. Vindicated. A lot of guys felt vindicated, right? Like the ones that felt that they were being unfairly judged or unfairly persecuted by the Me Too movement. And I feel like this is kind of an extension of that, relating to the whole Blake Lively, Justin Baldini, It Ends With Us movie. Like now people are painting Justin out to be a saint. And I'm saying I do think that like Justin, he's looking very good so far. We'll see in the end how everything plays out. But so far, like I'll give it to him. Yeah, I think that he's been very respectful during this tour. I think it's very admirable that he has kept the focus on the themes of DV and how important of an issue it is that we have to combat as a society. All of his interviews have been consistently like focused on that note. I also do think that there's a PR team behind that though, because he actually hired Johnny Depp's PR team. It's so crazy. It's so meta because it feels like that in itself is kind of a PR move, right? Like you hired Johnny Depp's PR team. That's the part that gives me pause about him. But so far, when it comes to like between Blake and Justin, I would say I'm on Team Justin for sure right now because Blake is just acting like a CUNT. I never paid attention to her like that, but from the clips I saw, she gives mean girl vibes. Like the girl from high school who acted nice to you in your face, but was obviously mocking you. Yes, me too. I also never really paid attention to her. I only remember like back in the day. So I think her first movie was Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Then after that, she got cast in Gossip Girl, right? And that's when like the rest is history or her story. But I just remember like I saw this one interview of hers where she basically said that, I mean, she's a Nepo baby at the end of the day because her family, like her siblings and everyone were all involved in the entertainment industry. She has a lot of brothers and sisters and a lot of them are actors. I just remember her saying that she never wanted to get into acting because she didn't want to follow the typical family business. But then one day, her brother or somebody forced her to audition for this movie. And since she's just so tall, blonde, and beautiful, they had to have her cast in the movie. She was forced to become an actress because she just fit the mold too perfectly. Like she was too beautiful and blonde and cookie cutter Hollywood starlet to not be an actress. That's the way that she recounted it, at least in the interview, which I don't think there's anything wrong with. I mean, hey, at least she's like owning the fact that she's a Nepo baby, but I think she's very, very out of touch. And okay, so I bring this up, like I wouldn't even care about this if it wasn't for the fact that I think it's so ironic that the last guy that I went on a date with in Dubai, so I actually, this is so funny, I canceled a date last minute with a guy because he was getting like snippy about the time. When I went back in April, I did have a few dates from actual in-person meetings at like networking events. So this time I tried to recreate the same thing, but I feel like the magic is not quite there in the summer in Dubai. Like, I don't know. It's not dead or anything. Like I enjoyed summer. It was very, very peaceful. And there were people there. It wasn't empty like some people claimed, but it was just like a lot of the energy was missing because you can feel, yeah, it is true that everything is kind of at a standstill. Like Global Village is not open. A lot of the events that I went to in April, the companies that were hosting those events, they halted operations in the summer because I guess there's just not enough people around for the participation that they want. And also it's just too hot. It's literally just too damn hot to do anything or go anywhere before like 8 p.m. So yeah, I ended up going on a few dates with people from Bumble. There was this one guy that I was supposed to go on a date with, but then he started getting weird about like, he was saying that he wanted to pick me up at like 10 p.m. And I was like, that's kind of late, I understand that you're coming from work and whatnot. I think he had his own business. So I was like, hey, that's really impressive, but do you think we can make it like 9 p.m.? No, because he told me either 9 or 10 p.m. So I was like, okay, well, if you're giving me a choice, I would prefer 9 p.m. He just got like a weird attitude. He was like, oh, so you don't want to go out late? Like, do you have a problem with lateness? I'm like, no, you said 9 or 10. So I'm hoping that it could be 9 because I don't want to like go out at 10 and then who knows when we're going to get back. So yeah, I decided not to go on the date with him because I didn't like his tone. Because if you can't even hold yourself together when it comes to like discussing what time to pick someone up or to meet someone, then that's not the type of person that I need to be interacting with, male or female, right? Like when I coordinate even just with my girlfriends for lunch or something, nobody gets an attitude about time. Like that's not a thing. Like why are you so bothered and unhealed that you get an attitude with somebody about literally just trying to decide the time that you're trying to meet? That has nothing to do with me, right? It sounds like a you problem, bro. Oh yeah. Her and Ryan Reynolds got married at a plantation. Red flag with that couple. Yeah, I heard about that. That is crazy. And the fact that that was like cleaned up, because I vaguely remember hearing about that when it actually happened. like in real time, however many years ago it was, but like somehow it just got glossed over because those two are protected, I guess, by the press. But yeah, no. So this date story is gonna tie in with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Just trust me. Not all men, right? So some men get triggered by the smallest things. You want to stay away from those men because they're unhealed, and they're not going to be able to, if they can't handle a discussion about time to meet for the date, then they cannot handle anything when it comes to actual serious discussions about a relationship. And we're not even talking about like something that might warrant an annoyed reaction, like if you're late or something. Okay, that I understand. People have been late picking me up. I am not really late ever because I make it a priority to not be late, but I don't make it a big deal if someone's late, because that's why I always make them pick me up. That way, even if they're late, at least like I still don't have to do anything. I'm just going to wait for them to get here. So I canceled a date with him. By that time, it was like 9:45. It was really late. It was like 9:45 p.m. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll just go out by myself. Or I was trying to figure out what to do, right? Or I could just like go to sleep because I still had a couple of days left. But then I was like, you know what? I can get a date within 15 minutes if I wanted to. I can get another date lined up. And so that's exactly what I did. I went on Bumble and I swiped again on a bunch of profiles, and there was this one guy that messaged me first. He was like, hey, what are you up to tonight? And I was like, I'm debating whether or not I want to go out for shisha tonight because it's already so late, but I'm only here for a week, so I want to make the most of my time. And then he was like, where are you? I can pick you up if you want to go somewhere nearby. And so that is how I got a date in less than 15 minutes. And he was, I don't want to get too much into him because it's not really important, but he was a nice guy. Like, he was a decent guy. He was I could tell that he was very like burned in the past, probably though, from like ex-girlfriends, or I don't know. He started talking about gold diggers on the date. I'm like, okay, here we go. And I didn't really like the vibes when he first picked me up, because it felt like he was giving me the vibes of like, he didn't want to give me compliments, right? Like it felt like he was holding back at first. Like he wanted to see how I was going to act first, to see if I would be worth the compliments and the princess treatment that he would later on give me. So I didn't really like that. I mean, he acted like a gentleman from the beginning to the end, but I could just feel this energy within him that he wanted to like hold back to make sure that I was worth it before he gave me anything else. So like, for example, he didn't immediately tell me like how beautiful I looked. He said something indirect. He was like, oh, your dress is such a great color. Like, that's my favorite color. Because I was wearing this turquoise green dress. And he was like, whoa, how did you know green is my favorite color? But he didn't say anything directly about how I looked cute and beautiful, which I know that I did. But then, like, by the end of the night, I noticed that his attitude changed completely after he saw, like, what a bright, feminine beam of shining light that I am. Regardless of whether or not you want to be weird and, like, defensive. And so after he like let his guard down with me, then by the end of the night he was literally like shouting at me. He was like, you look so gorgeous. And I was like walking back to my hotel because he dropped me back off, and he was like, you looked gorgeous tonight. He was like shouting it across to me as I was walking to the hotel. So I'm already out of the car by this time, and I noticed that he was like jumping to open the door for me by the end of the date, but in the beginning he didn't open the door for me. So, you know, it's not a big deal or anything, but I noticed these things. He turned out to be like, you know, really sweet, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but like he offered to drive me back to the airport for my flight back to Tokyo, which was actually really, really nice, I think. Because like most guys, I mean, no other guy that I have dated has offered to do that for me. So I think that was a really, really significant gesture, right? Regardless of how like weird he was acting in the beginning, I feel like the fact that he followed through with an action of that caliber, I was kind of impressed by that. And especially considering that it's not like he was off, like he still had to work. He worked from home, but he basically did sacrifice like an entire night of sleep in order to take me to the airport, which he didn't even have to do because technically the hotel that I stayed at, it was not that far at all. It was like 20 minutes drive from the airport. I could have easily gotten an Uber, or he could have even paid for an Uber for me if he wanted to still like do something nice for me, but he decided to take me himself. So I thought that was really, really nice. But it's just funny because like we were talking in the car, I remember on the second date, like basically the night before I left, we we had a date, and then like he waited in his car for 2 hours while I packed because I had to leave at 4 a.m. for the flight. I cannot stand the flight times for this one flight from Haneda to Haneda to Dubai. Like, I don't know how much longer I can take this, but I can only take that flight because it's the only one that doesn't have a transfer. So yeah, he took me to the airport, and then, but before that we had our date, right? So then like during the date while we were driving, I was asking him like, oh, do you have like a celebrity crush? And he said Megan Fox, go figure. But then he was saying, he also said, she's not my type, but I think that I really like her and her husband. And he mentions Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. He's like, I think that they're just like such a good couple. Like they're just such a power couple, and they just seem like such good people. And I remember side-eyeing him in that moment because I was like, oh, is this a red flag? Like the fact that you like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. This is way before the controversy came out with the new movie, right? But even then, I always thought that, I was like, okay, I don't know. I feel like I heard some random rumors in the past about, maybe it was that the fact that they got married on a plantation. I feel like I didn't remember exactly in the moment, but I remember there was some controversy dealing with them. And also the fact that Ryan Reynolds also has rumors about him that he's not that friendly. He also doesn't look that friendly to me, to be honest. I mean, not that you can judge a person by their looks only, but low-key kind of you can though. I'm not talking about like their attractiveness level. I'm talking about the softness in their face, a certain look in their eyes. This is what I go off of when I'm judging people by their looks, right? I'm not talking about like how objectively handsome or beautiful they are. I'm talking about like you can see the tension in somebody's face if they're stressed, right? So if there's somebody who's like at peace, who's a kind person to everyone, I believe that you can see that through their facial features. Blake and Ryan were always painted as the power couple of Hollywood. So I'm not surprised that there were people who fell for the act. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. I was kind of like, when he said that, I was like, really? Are you falling for that? I mean, I'm not saying that it's impossible, that they're nice people, but I just always had this intuition inside me that it was all an act, right? Like it's fabricated for the press. Because think about it. Why do you think that they're such an ideal couple? Like, why are you just automatically attributing all these good qualities to them? It's probably because somebody implanted the idea in your mind beforehand, right? Like the media implanted in your mind that, oh, they're so philanthropic. And okay, I will be honest. I did think that at the time, I did kind of agree with him about Blake, because I remember she had this period where she was really like speaking out about child SA, like child PORN, child corn. I remember, didn't she have that activist period? Okay, maybe again it was all an act or a strategy, but still the fact that she like used her platform to speak out against that, I did respect her for that. And especially knowing that, she's a full-time mom, like this new movie is kind of her return to work, right? Return to acting. Yeah, so like I thought that Blake, at least on the activism front, I thought she was at least trying to do something good. And the fact that she's a mom herself, it makes sense that she would be passionate about an issue like that. So I don't think that part is necessarily fake, like her advocating for more stringent laws and things like that, like crackdown on people who distribute child porn. Like I remember watching her make a speech about that and tearing up because the subject matter was so heavy, but she seemed like so passionate and dedicated to the cause. So that's why I'm kind of like, I'm not surprised. I don't idolize celebrities, okay? So I'm never like surprised or disappointed when things come out about them. Like there are people that, okay, let me think about who are like the celebrities that I can count on one hand that I actually kind of really F with. Cillian Murphy. Because Cillian Murphy is like a pretty boy, right? Like you can't deny his attractiveness, but he seems to genuinely not care. Like he seems to really not care at all about Hollywood outside of the fact that it's his job and it's his art, like he takes it seriously as his art form. But as far as his personal life goes, like he married a normal woman, somebody not in the industry, and he keeps his private life very, very out of the limelight. So I respect Cillian Murphy. Tom Hardy is kind of similar, I think. Everyone thinks he's attractive. He's like this typical Hollywood hunk if you want to talk about physicality, but he also seems to like not care at all about that type of validation, right? Like he just wants to focus on his craft. I forgot to mention Sam Rockwell here. Ever since I saw him play Eric Knox, the bad guy in Charlie's Angels, I was like, that's my man. Any character, any movie that Sam Rockwell acts in is a pleasure to watch. You can tell he loves it and does it because he genuinely loves it. Yeah, you're talking about Cillian Murphy, right? I agree with you about Ryan. It's awesome that you have a sixth sense to see it in their facial features. Nobody's perfect. You can't idolize celebrities. It's so true. Yeah. So like, I don't even think it's a sixth sense thing. It's just like a maybe some people have a more innate ability than others to sense it in people, but I think it's something that can definitely be learned. You know how I know? It's because I've been on these damn dating apps for the past 8 months, and you can really like, I'm at the point where I have done videos in the past where I have come on here and gone through like actual Bumble profiles with you line by line, because you do have to read somebody's profile. But I'm at the point where I just swipe on people based on their face, essentially, like based on their photographs at first. Then later, if they message me, then I will look at their profile. And then if there's red flags in their profiles at that point, then I will unmatch. And I feel like at this point, it's pretty accurate, even if I just swipe based on physicality. Again, not talking about attractiveness level. Yes, that plays somewhat of a factor into it. Like I do have certain features that I find handsome or whatever personally, but it's more about, because like the guy that I was on a date with for my last day in Dubai, he was asking me this too. He was like, how can you tell like what guy is safe, or like if you think it's worth it to get to know this person or to meet up with this person, like what's your thought process about how to vet a guy if he's safe? And so I told him that honestly, for me, it comes down to like the expression. I don't even want to use the word expression. It's more like the tension in their face, to put it technically. Yeah. Because expression is like, okay, you can be happy, you can be sad, you can be intense. Because, some guys smile in their photos, some don't smile. It's not even about that, right? Like, just because you don't smile, that doesn't mean that you're mean mugging or anything. That doesn't mean that you're like unhappy. It's the tension levels in their face. And there's like certain micro expressions that tell me whether or not a guy is very arrogant and into himself. Like the certain way that they like look into the camera, right? Like if they angle themselves this way, they're like looking down at you. Typically, I sense arrogance in that, and it's not something that I want to deal with. It doesn't mean that I will completely write them off. Like it's very, very nuanced. And I think it's a very personal thing, right? So somebody who has a different woman who has the same ability as me to distinguish from somebody's facial expression, whether or not he's like safe, we're still going to have different preferences. But yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to like the tension in the face, in the muscles, and also just their eyes as well. Like whether or not the gaze is relaxed. Like you can tell if someone's kind or not by the gaze in their eyes. You can tell if they're a really kind person, or if they're more on the selfish side, or if they're arrogant. Or, in some cases, you can tell some of these guys are seriously disturbed, and those often get an immediate left swipe from me. But yeah, so I just thought it was really funny. He warmed up to me by the second date, right? So he was like doing all this stuff to impress me. He brought me flowers on the second date. He brought me a little statue of the Burj Khalifa, this one. So it was I thought it was like cute, I'm not gonna forget that he was being like weird and suspicious for no reason, like without even getting to know me first on the first date. But he was a good guy, right? Like my first intuition was right. He was a decent guy. Like he wanted to do the right thing, but he was just coming off like off-putting at first. And we had a discussion about it during the second date, actually, because he was like, I noticed that you kind of like recoil when I ask you certain questions or certain things that you don't want to talk about. You kind of like stiffen up. And he said, I really am not trying to offend you or anything. Can you just tell me if I'm doing something wrong? So I was like, okay, yeah, I appreciate that you're like bringing this up and you're communicating like a decent person. So I was like, yeah, we can talk about it. And so I told him that I just get the sense, maybe I'm wrong, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seems like you were holding back, like you were being overly cautious. And if you want my 2 cents, like you don't have to accept this advice or anything, but if you want my 2 cents, I told this to the guy, you don't have to like, what did I say? You should know the kind of person that you are, right? You're confident in the kind of person that you are. So if you're a gentleman if you're a good guy, a nice guy, you want to take care of a woman properly, like you want to fulfill the traditional masculine role of being a provider and whatnot in a relationship, then that's how you should show up, right? Regardless of what the woman is. So even if she does turn out to be a bitch or a gold digger, or like he was talking to me about his ex and how he got her 4 different birthday gifts. 2 of them were designer and 2 of them were more personalized. So he got her like a little personalized bracelet and 1 no brand thing and then 2 designer things. And he said that he was like really sad when she only expressed excitement or gratitude for the designer items. So, and I don't even have an opinion on that because guess what? I'm only hearing his side of the story, right? Like I'm not hearing her side of the story. So for all we know, that could have just been his perception that she wasn't grateful, but maybe she actually was, but she was just excited about the designer item, you know? Like you're the one that takes it to mean that she only cares about labels and stuff. Maybe she just really wanted that Louis Vuitton wallet.
And I just thought of this other possibility right now, but maybe she could subconsciously sense that he was trying to test her. Because at first glance, it's like, wow, 4 birthday gifts, boyfriend of the year, right? But he was basically telling me in no uncertain terms by recalling this story that he was testing her to see how she would react to the non-designer gifts. Like, you're not slick, man. I see right through you. If you truly just want to lavish your woman or girl with a bunch of gifts on a special occasion, then just do that. But it should just be from the goodness of your heart, like from your pure desire to do something nice for her, because you realize that your ultimate goal of trying to test this girl to see if she's a gold digger or whatever by how she reacts to different gifts, it invalidates the gesture in the first place of giving 4 gifts. You know, it's all about the intent behind every action. And I'm not even saying that there's anything wrong with testing a woman. Like, women should test men, men should test women to make sure that they are, you know, really who they say they are and that they're actually going to be a good mate in the long run. But my point is that there is a way to do it in a tactful manner and not in a way that's so obvious and off-putting and like making the other person feel like it's just so you're just so blatant about trying to get them to audition for you or prove to you that they're worth something. You know what I mean? And so now, upon second thought, I almost wouldn't be surprised if she either subconsciously or consciously picked up on the fact that you were subtly, but not so subtly, trying to test her by giving her 4 gifts. And maybe that's why she also decided to be like, you know what, F it. If you're going to do this, then I'm also going to be very blatant with the fact that I prefer the designer item. Okay, how you like them apples? Also, just literally stop talking about your exes on dates, please. It's not a good look. Your new date is not your therapist, so yeah, please stop that.
Anyway, the point is, like he was telling me these stories, so then it kind of made sense to me. Like, oh, okay, so you're afraid of like getting played or getting bled dry by a girl that's only after your money. But the thing is, like, if this is what I told him. I said, if you're like confident in who you are, like you're a gentleman no matter what, right? So you're going to treat a woman right. You're going to compliment her and open the car door for her, all of that stuff. So if you do that and she turns out to be like really ungrateful and rude, let's say, that takes nothing away from you. You understand that? Like, it even highlights more how much of a gentleman you are. It highlights your good qualities even more if the person that you're with is demonstrating the opposite. So that was just my little advice to him. And he was like, you know what? You have a point. But yeah, then he said that he was like a fan of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. And I was like, whoa. Hold on. I don't think it's going to work. Like, you fell for that?